You fill up a glass from your kitchen tap. You hold it to the light. There's that faint yellow tint again, maybe a whisper of something metallic on your tongue. So you open the cabinet under the sink. The replacement cartridge is sitting there in its box. $89. And that's the third one this year. You twist the old one out, black and heavy with everything it caught, and you slide the new one in. $89. Every 4 months, for the rest of your life. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question sits that you've never quite chased down. Your grandfather drank from a hand pump well for 60 years. No filter, no chlorine tablets, no quarterly expense. He didn't die of bad water. Nobody in that house did. So what did he know that you're paying $89 every 4 months to not know? Here's the thing. What I'm about to walk you through isn't some fringe idea from the corners of the internet. This method was formally documented over 200 years ago. The World Health Organization still recommends it today. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why nobody with a filter to sell has ever mentioned it to you. If that sounds like something worth 10 minutes of your time, tap that subscribe button now, because this channel is for people who'd rather know how things actually work than keep writing checks for things they don't need. Here's what most people think water purification looks like. You've got 3 choices. 1, a municipal treatment plant with pipes running into your house. Somebody else's water on somebody else's schedule. 2, a commercial filtration system bolted under your sink. Cartridges shipped to your door in a box that costs more every single year. 3, chemical treatment. Chlorine or bleach drops. The taste of a swimming pool every time you take a drink. Those are your options. That's what everybody says. Everybody being the people who sell option 1, 2, or 3. But here's the part they leave out, because it puts them out of a job. Before any of those 3 options existed, before commercial filters, before chlorine treatment, before municipal systems were even a concept, entire cities drank clean water, and they did it through sand. Not a special proprietary sand with a brand name and a patent, just sand. Ordinary sand and gravel, layered in a specific way, with water poured slowly through from top to bottom. In 1804, a man named Robert Thom built the first documented slow sand filtration system in Paisley, Scotland. By 1829, the City of London was filtering its entire municipal water supply this way. No chemicals, no replaceable parts, just sand, gravel, and gravity. Now that sounds almost too simple to believe, and I get that. You're thinking, sand can catch dirt? Sure. It can catch sediment, maybe some rust particles, maybe some of that iron that turns your laundry orange. But you're picturing a screen, a physical barrier that catches big things and lets small things through. And if that's all it was, you'd be right to be skeptical. Because bacteria are tiny. E. coli is smaller than a grain of pollen. Giardia cysts are microscopic. No amount of sand packed in a bucket is going to physically block something that small. So if all sand did was strain out particles, this would be a terrible water purifier. And that brings us to the real question. What if sand isn't just blocking things? What if something else is happening inside that bucket? Something alive? Because here's where this gets interesting. When you set up a container with layered sand and gravel and start running water through it regularly, something begins to change in the first 2 or 3 weeks. You can't see it. You can't smell it. But on the surface of that top sand layer, a biological community starts to form. Microorganisms, harmless ones, the kind that exist naturally in water everywhere, begin to colonize the sand. They build a living film, barely a millimeter thick, across the top of the sand bed. Scientists call this layer the Schmutzdecke. It's a German word, means dirty layer, which is funny because it's the thing that makes the water clean. This biological film isn't passive. It's not sitting there like a screen waiting for something to bump into it. It's active. The organisms in that film are hunting. They feed on the pathogens that come through with the water. Bacteria, protozoa, parasites. They consume them. They break them down. It's predation, the same basic principle as a hawk eating a mouse, except it's happening in a layer thinner than a sheet of paper, on top of $5 worth of sand inside a plastic bucket. And this is the part that makes it different from any commercial filter you've ever bought. A cartridge filter is at its best the day you install it. From that moment on, it degrades, it clogs, it fills up. It gets worse until you rip it out and pay for another one. The Schmutzdecke works backwards. It starts weak and gets stronger. Every day you pour water through it, that biological community gets denser, more diverse, more effective. Lab studies, real studies, published in peer-reviewed journals, show Biosand filters removing up to 96.5% of bacteria, more than 99% of protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidium. Field studies across dozens of countries confirm 87 to 98% bacterial removal in real-world conditions, not in a lab, in kitchens. This isn't folk wisdom dressed up to sound scientific. A researcher named Dr. David Manns at the University of Calgary spent years in the 1990s adapting this centuries-old slow sand method into a household-scale unit that anyone could build. An organization called CAWST took that design and helped install over 600,000 of these filters in communities around the world. The World Health Organization recognizes biosand filtration as a legitimate household water treatment method. This isn't hidden. It's documented. It's published. It's proven. But there's a very good chance nobody's ever mentioned it to you. And there's a very specific reason for that. But before I tell you why nobody talks about this, I need to be honest with you about something. Because if I just painted a perfect picture and moved on, I'd be doing the same thing the filter salesmen do, just from the other side. This method is powerful, it's proven, it's remarkably cheap. But it is not magic, and it does not work in every situation. There are specific conditions where it falls short, specific contaminants it cannot touch, and specific mistakes that can make it useless or even dangerous. And knowing those limits is actually more important than knowing how to build one. So the real question now becomes, does this work for your well, your water, your situation? That's what matters. And that answer is not as simple as yes or no. Let me start with what this method cannot do, because if you skip this part, the rest is worthless. A biosand filter will not remove dissolved chemicals. If your well water has arsenic, nitrates, pesticides leaching in from nearby farmland, heavy metals from old plumbing, sand will not touch those. They pass right through, dissolved at the molecular level, invisible, tasteless sometimes, and dangerous. A biosand filter will also not give you 100% removal rate on viruses. Bacteria and protozoa, yes, it handles those remarkably well. But viruses are smaller, and the Schmutzdecke's removal rate for them sits somewhere between 70 and 99%, depending on conditions. That's a wide range. That's not certainty. There are practical limits, too. If your water is very turbid, thick with suspended clay or silt, more than about 50 nephelometric turbidity units, the filter clogs fast. You'll be cleaning it constantly, and the biofilm won't get a chance to mature properly. There's also a use it or lose it reality. That living biological layer needs regular feeding. If you leave the filter sitting dry for 2 weeks, the Schmutzdecke begins to die. You won't see it happen. But when you start pouring water through again, your removal rates will be gutted until the biology rebuilds, and that takes 20 to 30 days. This is not a set-it-and-forget-it gadget. It's a living system. It needs your participation. Now here's why I'm telling you all of this, instead of just showing you how to stack sand in a bucket. Because knowing the limits is what makes this method actually safe. And here's the practical move that costs you almost nothing. Call your county extension office or your local health department. Ask for a basic well water test. Depending on where you live, that runs somewhere between $15 and $50. That test tells you exactly what's in your water: bacteria, minerals, chemicals, the works. If your primary concerns are bacterial contamination, sediment, iron, turbidity, which covers the vast majority of rural well water issues in this country, a Biosand filter handles those directly. $5 method plus a $25 water test, $30 total. Compare that to what you're spending now. And for the gaps, for viruses, for that extra margin of safety, there's a second method that costs you literally nothing and stacks right on top. It's called SODIS, solar disinfection. You take the filtered water, pour it into a clear plastic or glass bottle, and set it in direct sunlight for 6 to 8 hours. The ultraviolet radiation from the sun deactivates viruses and any remaining bacteria that might have slipped through the sand. This isn't something I invented. The Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science developed and validated this protocol. The WHO endorses it. 2 methods. One costs $5, one costs $0. Layered together, and you've got a purification system that covers bacteria, protozoa, and viruses. No electricity, no replacement parts, no subscription, no phone call to a service company. So now you're sitting with the full picture. You know what it does. You know what it doesn't do. You know how to test your water first, which contaminants it handles, which ones need separate attention. And right about now, there's a question forming in your mind that's maybe louder than all the others. If this method has been around for over 200 years, if it's been validated by modern science, if it costs next to nothing, if organizations have installed 600,000 of these around the world, then why is this the first time you're hearing about it? Why has your plumber never mentioned it? Why doesn't the hardware store carry a $5 Biosand kit right next to the $89 replacement cartridges? And the answer isn't a conspiracy. Nobody is hiding this from you in a vault somewhere. The answer is simpler and, honestly, a little more frustrating than a conspiracy. It's economics, plain economics. A $5 bucket of sand that never needs replacing generates 0 recurring revenue. Nobody gets a monthly check from it. No filter company earns a quarterly cartridge sale. No plumber books a service call. No municipal system justifies its budget. The method works, but it doesn't make money. Not for anyone except the person using it. And in an economy that runs on repeat purchases, on subscriptions, on planned obsolescence, a solution that you build once and never buy again is invisible, not suppressed, just ignored. There's no profit motive to advertise it, no sales team to push it, no shelf space dedicated to something that costs less than a cup of coffee and lasts for years. Here's what you can do today. Get your well water tested. County extension, local health department, even a mail-in kit works. Know what's actually in your water before you build anything. If the results show bacterial contamination, sediment, iron, turbidity as your main issues, and for most rural wells they will, then you're a candidate. 1 5-gallon bucket, a layer of coarse gravel at the bottom, about 2 inches, a layer of fine gravel above that, another 2 inches. Then clean, washed sand, not beach sand, not place sand, coarse builder's sand, rinsed until the water runs clear. Fill to about 4 inches below the rim. Leave standing water above the sand, roughly 2 inches deep, always. A simple spout or pipe near the bottom to collect filtered water. Pour water in gently, don't blast the sand surface, and then wait. 20 to 30 days of regular daily use, and that living layer builds itself. You didn't manufacture it, you didn't order it. Nature assembled it for free. Your grandfather didn't have a degree in microbiology. He didn't know the word Schmutzdecke. He didn't read studies from the University of Calgary. But he had something that maybe matters more than any of that. He had the sense to trust a simple method that worked, and the stubbornness to not pay for a complicated one that did the same job worse. What I've given you today is not a miracle. It's not magic. It's a bucket, some sand, some gravel, and a few billion microorganisms that will work for you every single day for free, getting better at their job with every pour. The only thing it costs is knowing it exists. And now you do. If you've tried this already, or if you're going to, write it in the comments. And if your well has a problem I didn't cover here, put that down there too. There are people watching this who've solved it. Let them find you.